Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Washington, D.C. is all set for a presidential battle like no other. It is a highly contested and nail biting race between former President Mr. Donald Trump and serving Vice President Ms. Kamala Harris. Having said that, even the eyes of the entire world will be fixated on each and every development that takes place in this presidential election. Each country will have its own preferred pick, that is, a candidate who they feel will be the easiest to work with during his or her term in office over the next 4 years. Let us dwell into the details of how each country sees this particular election. Starting with our country, India. India is perhaps the only nation on this list who won't have a clearly definitive pick, which is to say that we won't have a clear preference for either candidate. It is simply because both the dispensations historically, the Republicans and the Democrats in this century, have backed boosting strategic ties with New Delhi. In fact, one of the themes of India's shifting foreign policy has been the budding geostrategic partnership with the United States. Taking this into account, however, I feel New Delhi would hold a slightly greater preference for Mr. Trump, owing to the simple fact that he has a much harder position against China and Pakistan, India's long standing adversaries. We must remember that Mr. Trump was the first American president to completely cut off military and financial aid to Islamabad in light of its support for several terrorist groups that operate on Indian soil. Adding to that, Mr. Trump also offered us diplomatic support for our retaliatory strikes carried out against Pakistan in the wake of the Pulwama attack in 2019. Later that year, our government revoked Article 370 from Jammu and Kashmir. Trump respected the Indian government's decision as an internal matter of ours and did not dwell into our internal affairs. In fact, his isolationist policies and his America First mantra was a great relief for New Delhi as far as this particular issue is concerned. As opposed to that, the democratic dispensation does have a slight soft corner for Pakistan. Hence, we see the resuming of military aid, the recent package for revamping of Pakistan's F-16 fleet, and the occasional statement with regards to Jammu and Kashmir in India. But by and large, statements don't really form much of foreign policy. It's economics, trade, and convergence of your strategic interests that do. And hence, Indo-American relations will be stable by and large, irrespective of who ends up at the Oval Office this year. Moving on from India, let us see what Russia, America's primary adversary, thinks about this election. Mr. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, has clarified that Russia's stance continues to be the same, and in fact he fears for a large military conflict between Washington and Moscow, irrespective of which candidate wins. This is because, as opposed to the popular notion, Mr. Trump was no less hard on Russia than the democratic dispensation. In fact, not only did he retain Mr. Obama's sanctions imposed on Russia, he increased the number of sanctions on Moscow, increasing it to 257, making Russia more sanctioned than even Iran during his presidency. President Trump also withdrew from a key treaty that required kind of destruction of ballistic missile arsenals of both Russia and the US, citing Moscow's violations of some important terms of that treaty. Hence, relations between America and Russia will remain turbulent and tense, irrespective of a Harris win or a Trump win. Russia's partner, however, Beijing, China, views this election very differently. Beijing will bank on a Harris win simply because Mr. Trump started a trade war against China during his presidency, and he's promising to double down, in fact triple down on it, if I may use the word, because tariffs during his tenure encompassed Chinese products worth $360 billion, and the percentage averaged out at about 18%. However, he has promised to increase the net to around goods worth $560 billion, and the percentage will exceed 55 to 60%. Beijing cannot afford that, since it will be ousted entirely from American markets if that were to happen. Ms. Harris, on the other hand, has a much more softer stance vis-a-vis Beijing. She has pushed for de-risking rather than decoupling with China entirely, and hence she will be China's preferred candidate in this particular race. Moving on from China, NATO and much of Western Europe will certainly bank on a Harris win, simply because Mr. Trump has been highly critical of NATO. He's urging NATO countries to ramp up their military aid, their contribution to the alliance. And he does not see the logic behind America pouring its money and weapons into a war on a separate continent. As I mentioned in this video, he is an isolationist and he has promised to end the Ukraine war on day one. He's not clarified how, but chances are he might cut off military and diplomatic support to Ukraine. And that will certainly raise eyebrows across Western Europe and much of the NATO bloc. Ms. Harris, on the other hand, has reiterated her commitment to NATO and has pushed for ramping up of military and financial aid to Ukraine, which already stands at $175 billion over the past 2 years. She has promised to support Ukraine for as long as Kiev requires her support. Hence, she will be the preferred candidate across Western, Central, and Eastern Europe. Coming to the Middle East, Tel Aviv, Israel will certainly bank on Mr. Trump emerging triumphant because he orchestrated the Abraham Accords back in 2020, a plethora of normalizational deals between Israel and several other Arab nations. Besides that, he also recognized Israeli sovereignty in the Golan Heights and shifted America's embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of the Jewish state. Hence, Tel Aviv would bank on Trump, certainly. Saudi Arabia, one of America's key partners in the Middle East, will also, I feel, bank on Mr. Trump due to the highly close personal equation between President Trump and His Highness Crown Prince MBS. And yet again, Mr. Trump's transactional nature does come into play. Arms procurements between Saudi Arabia and America did skyrocket during his presidency. He offered unconditional support to to Saudi Arabia's offenses in Yemen, for example, and he did not destabilize the relationship by causing discomfort by raising issues such as the assassination of Jamal Khashoggi, for example. We have seen that during the past 4 years, relations between Riyadh and Washington have hit rock bottom, and hence the Saudis will be happy to see the Democrats out of the White House. So this was my analysis, my friends. I hope you found this video to be informative, and these were just some insights that I provided to the entire reshaping of global politics that could happen in the wake of the US presidential election results. Thank you so much, friends. Jai Hind. Take care.